Welcome everyone, Costin here on Serious Gaming with the new political discussion videos. For much of 2017 and for a lot of 2018 so far, we've heard this story of a blue wave forming to sweep the Republicans out of Congress and install the Democrats. Give the Democrats control of Congress, or at the very least the House of Representatives. But how credible is that story really? Well, I think predicting elections 2 years in advance is pretty difficult unless you go race by race, which is, what you can do easily with the presidential election and Senate elections, certainly. But when it comes to the House of Representatives, the so-called analysts, the so-called experts, the media, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They just love a good story, and they like to make as much money out of it by milking that story. That's how the mainstream media operates. It's not even a partisan bias, it's really greed. They're driven by financial gain. So creating this whole narrative suits their purposes very well. Of course, you then have a lot of people that oppose Trump who must find a way to redeem their good names after the disaster that the 2016 election was for them. Keep in mind, during the 2016 election, a lot of the same people who are now talking about the blue wave said that Trump would never win and gave some very ridiculous electoral maps. Like Hillary winning, 330 electoral votes. Yeah, that was never going to happen. Even if she was going to win, that was simply not going to happen. But hey, the Trump derangement syndrome, as it's being called, is very strong within quite a few people, specifically political analysts, establishment type people, and of course, quite a few people within the mainstream media. But ultimately, the mainstream media is driven by greed. And so when you have Democrats spending tens of millions of dollars in a single House race, the Georgia 6th district special election, when you have special election after special election being deemed the most important thing in the universe, then of course people are going to focus on it. But at the end of the day, is there a blue wave coming? Well, I want to read from an article on Salon. I've chosen this one specifically because of, obviously, where Salon stands on the issue. It's fairly left-wing. And here's what they have to say. Warning signs for the blue wave. Republicans shun Blankenship pick strong contenders. Endangered Democrats in West Virginia and Indiana must face credible opponents. Ohio governor race will be tight. Results of the Tuesday's Republican Senate primaries, the first significant data set of 2018 midterms, suggest that the GOP is poised to repeat its successful 2014 midterm performance and to avoid weak Senate nominees that emerged from the 2010 and 2012 primaries in states like Indiana, Delaware, Missouri, and Nevada. Republicans went to the polls on Tuesday to choose nominees in 3 key Senate races on one of the biggest primary days of 2018, and they did not squander a trio of their best pickup opportunities. While ambitious House Republicans elected since the 2010 Tea Party wave did not fare well in their bids to move up, Republican primary voters stayed away from the problematic candidates who have already cost them several special elections since President Donald Trump took office. Most obviously, the nomination of accused sexual predator Roy Moore in Alabama allowed Democrat Doug Jones to win a Senate seat in one of the nation's most conservative states. Because of Moore's loss, Republicans only hold a 51-49 majority in the Senate heading into the fall's midterms. West Virginia. Despite all the talk of a blue wave, it's worth remembering that Democrats must defend Senate seats in 10 states won by Donald Trump, and none of those was the margin greater than in West Virginia. Although Democratic Senator Joe Manchin has won 5 statewide elections in his career, he is widely viewed as one of 2018's most vulnerable incumbents. Manchin's best chance of holding onto his seat was defeated on Tuesday. As wealthy coal executive Don Blankenship, who recently completed a prison term resulting from his role in a mine explosion that killed 29 people, finished a distant firm in the Republican primary. Blankenship was convicted in 2015 of conspiring to skirt mine standards at Massey Energy's Upper Big Branch mine, where the disaster occurred in 2010. He declared himself the victim of an Obama administration conspiracy and presented an unexpected challenge to 2 more traditional Republican candidates. Trump made an 11th-hour plea for voters to reject Blankenship after he seemed to surge. And of course, Blankenship did fail. So West Virginia gave the president 68% of its vote in 2016. Blankenship, who calls himself Trumpier than Trump, ran campaign ads that referred to Senate Majority Mitch McConnell as Cocaine Mitch and described Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao's parents as China family. Perhaps Trump's intervention worked. In any event, the AP reports that Morrissey won the primary, with Representative Evan Jenkins, a former Democrat, coming in second. Blankenship only got about 20% of the vote. Morrissey presents an excellent chance for the Republicans to pick up the seat, although it's true that Manchin and his Democratic Party opponent got more votes than all the Republicans together. Indiana. A freeway Republican race to challenge Democratic Senator Joe Donnelly, one of the GOP's top Senate targets, ended with a wealthy business and a former Democrat victory. Mike Brown, a former state legislator turned businessman, beat out House Representatives Todd Rokita and Luke Messer. Brown funneled $4.5 million of his own money into the race in a campaign that saw more than $9 million in combined spending, making it one of the year's most expensive primary races of the year. Rivals since college, Messer and Rokita left their seats in the House to run for a Senate. Vice President Mike Pence's brother won the GOP primary for Messer's House seat on Tuesday. They began attacking each other last year before either of them had announced his candidacy. While the battle hasn't drawn much national attention, their relentless negative attacks drew Brown, who until recently had voted in Democratic primaries, into the race. All three candidates attempted to out-Trump each other. Brown said Trump paved the way for a candidate who had spent most of his career in business. Rokita has been traveling the state with the cardboard cutout of the president. What the I'm sorry, this is just laughable. And introduced a resolution to end special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia probe. Nasser introduced a resolution calling on Trump to be nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. But Brown will certainly now win Trump's endorsement in his race against Donnelly, who has made little impression on the political world during his 6 years in Washington and may be the Democratic incumbent's least likely to succeed in 2018. Trump won Indiana by 20 points 2 years ago, plans to hold a campaign rally in the state on Thursday. So he did, of course. And then Ohio, the only GOP House member who managed to take a major step towards promotion to the Senate on Tuesday, Representative Jim Renassi will now challenge Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown in the fall. But Ohio's must-watch contest was to replace Governor John Kasich, an anti-Trump Republican, being forced out by term limits. Richard Cordray, former head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, now headed by Trump loyalist Mick Mulvaney, will be the Democratic nominee for Ohio governor. Cordray conclusively defeated Dennis Kucinich, the former congressman, presidential candidate, and Cleveland mayor, winning every area of the state. The race was something of a proxy battle between two progressive leaders, pitting Senator Elizabeth Warren against Bernie Sanders' aligned group Our Revolution. Cordray will now face former Senator Mike DeWine, the Republican nominee, and race likely to be seen as a national bellwether. So that's what happened. So that's what happened on May the 8th in the United States. You have those races, but of course that's Senate races, that's the governor race. But here's the thing: you'll also, of course, have the House of Representatives, and there for the Republicans, it's actually looking pretty bad. I mean, they have over 40 representatives that have decided that they're not going to run again. So that doesn't bode very well for the Republicans in the House. In the Senate, of course, things appear to be much better for them. I mean, the Democrats are defending not just 10 seats in states that Trump won, but over 26 seats in total, over 20 seats at any rate. They are defending over 20 seats in total, whereas the Republicans are only defending 9. So in regards to the Senate election, the Senate midterms, you have the Democrats in a position where they need to pick up 2 seats in order to get the majority, and on top of that, they need to hold on to every other seat that they already have. So that's going to be very difficult. I think the most likely situation, even though you have Bob Corker and Jeff Flake resigning in the Senate, so they're not going to run, so they're not incumbents in Arizona and Tennessee, that would make it easier for the Republicans to hold on to those, especially in Arizona. That's crucially important. And of course, you have the situation in Nevada. It's going to look pretty bad for the Republicans in Nevada. It's going to look pretty bad for them in Arizona. But it's very likely that regardless of how all of this ends, even if they lose either Arizona or Nevada or even both, that the Republicans remain in the majority and even pick up a couple of seats in total. I mean, the Democrats are in a pretty bad situation in North Dakota, Montana, Indiana, West Virginia, and of course maybe Missouri. We'll see how all of that goes down. There's also, of course, a Senate race in. There are actually, I think, two Senate races? Because Al Franken resigned, so there's two Senate races in Minnesota. That's also going to be interesting to see how all of that pans out. I think, though, that the most likely scenario is that the Republicans pick up some seats, the Democrats stay in the minority in the Senate. And that's going to be the situation in the Senate. I think that's a reasonable expectation to have with regards to those particular races. However, in the House, the Republicans, as I've said, are in deep trouble. But even though they do have a lot of people that are resigning, even though they have a slew of horrible candidates that are running for the House, and even though Republicans, especially in the House, are a bunch of fucking maniacs, they do still have some significant advantages. Number one, Nancy Pelosi, of course. Who's not going to talk about lovely Nancy Pelosi, one of the most despised political figures in America? Oh, you think Trump is despised by the American people? Trump has a 42% approval rating on 538, 43, 44% approval rating on average, depending on the site you're using, like Real Clear Politics, 538, wherever. So Trump has that approval rating. Nancy Pelosi has an approval rating of something along the lines of 26, 28%. I mean, the only figure that's more unpopular than Nancy Pelosi in America is Mitch McConnell. But of course, Senate races play out differently than House races. The Republicans literally have a strategy that they will run against Pelosi. And you know what? It actually works. It works because there are quite a few Democratic Party members that are running for House seats that are saying we will not vote for Pelosi if we get into the House. How truthful they are, how that would actually play out is hard to say. But I think the Democrats would be well served if they actually want to take back the House in a sweeping victory to get rid of Nancy Pelosi. But of course they won't. Nancy Pelosi represents for a lot of people everything that they despised about the Democratic Party, the cultural elitism of the Democratic Party. So instead of getting rid of her, they keep her because, of course, she has many defenders in the media. She has many friends in the media, and she has many friends among the party donors. So she brings in a significant amount of money for the Democratic Party. And of course, that's why she stays in power, even though she's been losing House elections for quite a few years now. So I do think the Democrats, if the Democrats don't take back the House, even if they pick up a couple of seats, if they don't take back the House, it's very likely going to be as a result of Nancy Pelosi and how widely hated she is in the United States. Of course, the second thing here is Trump himself. So if Trump doesn't do anything deeply controversial between now and November, between now and the midterms, it's possible, in fact likely, that the Republicans, although they might lose some seats in the House, that's certainly very likely. I'm pretty sure they will lose some seats regardless of what happens, but it's likely that the Republicans would keep control of that. So it depends who's more controversial, who people hate more, Trump or Pelosi. That's really what it boils down to. I mean, the Republicans, the Democrats might have Paul Ryan as a punching bag, but then Paul Ryan decided, you know what, I'm not going to run again. I mean, Paul Ryan decided to resign. GG on that one, by the way. Good job, Paul Ryan. Nice job as Speaker of the House. You were magnificent. All hail Paul Ryan, the worst Speaker of the House in recent U.S. history. On many levels. On a great deal of levels. I don't think anyone's really sad about the fact that Paul Ryan is exiting Washington. Still, when it comes down to it, who's gonna win, Trump or Pelosi? That's really the question. I mean, Trump is good friends with the person that's most likely to succeed. Political allies with the person most likely to succeed as House Speaker if the Republicans keep control of the House. Now that Paul Ryan is out, and that's Kevin McCarthy. But we'll have to wait and see how all of that pans out. Hard to say, and you can't just look at, oh, this is the generic ballot, so the generic ballot says that the Democrats win. Sure, the generic ballot, but the generic ballot has been swinging wildly. There are polls where the Democrats are leading by 9 points in the generic ballot. Then there are polls where the Democrats are only leading by 1 point or 3 points or 5 points. So depending on how it plans out, and don't dismiss the impact that something like North Korea could have. Though I would like to mention on two things here. What about the Iran nuclear deal? Well, in itself, it doesn't matter that Trump left the deal, not when it comes to the midterms. If he starts a war in the Middle East, then that's a very different scenario, and expect the voters in America across the board to punish him if he's stupid enough to do something like that. But if he does reach a deal with North Korea, that obviously is going to play very well for Trump. And hell, it would be a monumental achievement if he actually does that. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of things that could happen. Maybe Mueller does something against Trump. Maybe he indicts Trump. I don't know. That could have an impact, but it's hard to say. That's not a certainty. And obviously, you have this story with Stormy Daniels. I mean, seriously, does it really matter? I understand the media is making a big deal out of it, but hey, the media is motivated by greed and they like a good story, so hey, why not focus on this? Because obviously it's gonna get them a lot of money and that's why they're covering it. Does that matter? Trump is a scumbag. We knew that already. We've been told this already by the media for what, 3 fucking years? You think that's gonna change anytime soon? I mean, people either care or they don't about Trump being a scumbag. That's just the reality right now in America. People either give a damn or they don't. They're willing to overlook that because they don't care. They care about other things more important to themselves when it comes down to voting. And hell, if you want to talk about politicians being scumbags, most of them are. The vast majority of politicians are scumbags. So what's new? And I understand some people disagree on this, but I'm just telling you, the general population, that's how they view politicians. They despise Congress. They despise the political system. They despise both political parties. Every major national figure in America right now is widely, to one extent or another, despised by the American people. Every single one of them is unpopular. None of them have a majority approval rating. Not Chuck Schumer, not Nancy Pelosi, not Paul Ryan, certainly, not Mitch McConnell, and not Donald Trump. So think on that for a moment, how people view the politicians in the United States at this very moment. And you know what? Trump is the most popular out of all of those. Make of that what you will. Make of that situation what you will. How all of this plays out, hard to say. It certainly would be nice for people to do proper analysis instead of shouting from the heavens, oh, blue wave because XYZ, when they've clearly not done their homework properly. I would say that it depends on what happens between now and November. It depends on the candidates that they nominate. It depends on what Trump does with North Korea. It depends on what Robert Mueller does. Though things like the Stormy Daniels thing unlikely to have a significant impact on this. Anyway, that's all I had to say. Costin here on Serious Gaming signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for more. And if you do like my content, please do consider supporting me via PayPal or Patreon. I do need your support to continue making these videos.